Good afternoon, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. This is episode 106, and we're joined by some fan favorites here. People's Party of Texas is in the house, joined by Curtis, OC, and Athena. And we have a lot to discuss today. We got a presidential race going on. I mean, that can be a good or a bad thing. You know, it's always a circus show, it seems. But hopefully we can highlight some legitimate candidates who may reflect some of the things that we envision in the country going forward. And we're also going to talk about community policing, harm reduction. We're going to discuss some recent activity with the People's Party of Texas, some upcoming events with the People's Party of Texas. And just for people who may not know who the People's Party of Texas is, maybe a brief overview on who they are and what they represent. But I just want to say welcome back to the show, and we can't wait to have this great conversation with this panel.
Sounds good.
Thanks
Kiko.
Thank you, Kiko.
No problem. And before we get started, just a slight ad, and I'm going to throw a little surprise in before we get started and just say thanks to all the listeners, the viewers. We have gotten a few donations recently, which is good. We don't encourage people to do that. I'm not going to say no. People were saying that I was being too nice about not taking donations. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. I don't tell people to do it. If you do it, fine. But what I really want you to do is to subscribe for free. I don't really want your money. I just want a little bit of your time to expand your mind. And remember, you can't unthink free thought. That's what I want. Tell your friends and family, there's a little bit here for everyone. This is an independent YouTube channel. We are going through a lot of shadow banning because of the topics that we cover, but that's to be expected. I don't care about that personally. I'm more concerned about the ideas, bringing people together. I'm not going to write people off because you have a different view than I do. We're going to have different viewpoints. We're not going to agree on everything, but I think if you give us a chance, there's something for everybody. If you're not into the political stuff, we have plenty of cultural stuff that we talk about, and maybe it will open your mind up to some of the political stuff that we do discuss. And again, just give us a chance. If you give your favorite podcaster that talks about a lot of, honestly, a lot of bullshit and entertainment, if you're into that, that's fine. I'm not going to knock those people, but give people that are independent a try too. And I think you won't be disappointed with us. We have quite an international audience. 42% of the listeners and viewers outside of the United States. Always was the point of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. And just to give a major announcement to the people, and this is per request, Norm Finkelstein will be back on for a third time on Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. And after Norm comes on, Jill Stein is also going to be joined afterwards with some discussion about her upcoming 2024 campaign. So if you have questions specifically for Dr. Finkelstein or Dr. Stein, please send an email to kikofreethinker@gmail.com. That's going to be within the next week and a half. They both wanted to give that announcement out, so I will promote that on the social media platforms later. But let's get started with the People's Party of Texas. You all joined us in episodes 25, and I want to say 66 too. I may be wrong about that, but this is the third appearance. Like I said, you're getting popular. I know you are. I can tell people are just sending comments saying, hey, they do some good things. Keep up the great work. But for people who may not know who People's Party of Texas is, what would be the easiest way to describe what you are? Are you a political organization? Are you a grassroots organization? Like, what exactly is the People's Party of Texas about?
Who wants to take that first?
I was like, you can go first. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things, Kiko, I think the beauty is that while we all have shared ideas of what we are, we also all have very diverse ideas of what we are, and there's room for all of that. People's Party of Texas, we are a worker-centric party. In the state of Texas, our goals are really to create the foundations of a real revolutionary movement in the state of Texas for workers. So that at our core, that's what we are, and everything we do is centered around bringing that movement together and helping to create it and foster it.
Absolutely. And as far as your structure, we discussed that previously, but I did take a lot from what you said the previous two episodes. And what I really took away was the fact that you're really not trying to make this a a traditional political party, but a working class movement, starting at the local levels, really, just getting people to be more politically engaged. Um, I guess doing things community based to where just action speaking louder than words, like going out there doing the work, establishing an anarchist library, going out and telling people about safe sex, spreading LGBTQ awareness, prison reform, just all these different things. I think it's a great approach. And that way you don't have to label yourself as such and such, but you put in the work, you do it by example, and then people kind of follow that example, and you grow that way as a community. I think the structure is interesting. I didn't know a lot about horizontalism. I've talked to people before who followed politics and they didn't know what horizontalism was, but that's a part of your structure. If you want to briefly discuss what that is, so my audience can understand the intricacies of what the People's Party of Texas is about as far as the infrastructure, I think that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure, sure, yeah. Horizontal. It's, I think in the United States, it's a really kind of new idea. We really started to see it, really around. It's been present in a lot of different ways, so it's not new. But as far as growing in popularity, especially among movements like ours, I think it is kind of growing in adoption. Really, we're dedicated simply, in my view at least, very simply to just being non-hierarchical. Who's in charge? We're all in charge, right? No one's voice is worth more than someone else's voice. And a lot of movements, no matter how well-intentioned they are, that tends to be what happens, is that certain voices, for whatever reason, start to get more traction than others. And we really believe and try to organize ourselves so that everyone's voice matters and everyone gets to share their ideas. So are we perfect in that implementation? No, of course not, but it's something that we strive for constantly, and we try to organize ourselves in a way that encourages that.
Does OC or Athena have anything to add? Because I know we have a lot of things to discuss or whatever, but I just wanted to give you all a second or two if you had anything to add to what Curtis was discussing.
I mean, he pretty much covered it. The only thing I would add is that we have recently, fairly recently, within the past 6 months, we have enacted principles of unity and guiding principles. And for those, part of it is like the things that every meeting, every event, the things that we try to instill in those things. And part of that is literally making sure everyone's voice is heard, making sure that we don't just try to pigeonhole people into one way of thinking. All of these things, like, that's part of being non-hierarchical, and that is not the only problem by any means, but one of the biggest issues with all of the current political parties is this idea that you can put another person above, like have dominion of another person, that kind of idea. And we believe that, like, generally, that any type of form of that is going to be a hindrance to, like, people being represented and heard. If I am above you, then my word matters more somehow, or I'm special. And yeah, that's the, like, layman way I would explain it, is the way how we try to implement it.
Absolutely. Osa, do you have anything to add? I know my audience knows you well. There's some highlight moments for everyone on here, and I love it. Just sometimes I do the clips and stuff, but I'm not too crazy about them. But when I see some exciting moments during the interview, I do share them from time to time.
Like every organization that we've all been a part of, from like school to work to politics to whatever, is vertical. It's vertically oriented. It's top down. Someone is telling someone what to do, who's telling someone else what to do, who's telling someone else what to do. And it's just like, imagine if, instead of vertically oriented, it was horizontal. Like, what if you had as much say as your boss? You know, we have a chair. They have no special powers. Like, they have no special anything. It's just like we're legally required to have a chair. And so it's like, maybe it's confusing when you like, you know, run for chair. It's like you don't get all of a sudden like these privileges and powers over other people. It's just like you're volunteering for a role that needs to be filled, and which is great. You know, if you believe in what we're doing here, that's great. And it's not like you have a bunch more work to do. It's just a title. And so like this isn't an organization where you can seek power, because there is no like concentration of power. And I think that's cool. But that's all I would say.
And how many people
Oh.
make up the People's Party of Texas? What are we looking at as far as I don't want to use the word leadership, because it's been established that everyone has a role, you know, once you're a part of it. But how many people make up the People's Party of Texas?
Within
Like
our,
yeah, go ahead.
so we're divided into circles. It's part of our non-hierarchical organization. We have one circle that's required by the state, and we call that our state executive circle. And that's what the state of Texas requires us to have in order to have registered as a political party. And that circle, right now, we have, I believe, 6 core members of that. Pretty much the, you know, treasurer, secretary, chair, vice chair, and then all of the precinct and county chairs who have volunteered to fill that role. Now, outside of that, within the circles, the various circles we have dozens and dozens of members all across the state. And that's people who, you know, say, hey, I'm a People's Party of Texas member, or they're people who just say, hey, I like this circle and what it's doing, and I want to help with that. And we have room for all, right? If you want to register as a party member, that's great. That's not a requirement to get involved with us. We have all kinds of people who just are into what we're doing. We're in areas like harm reduction and, you know, exploring community policing alternatives and things like that.
As far as the advocacy is concerned, and just any groups that reflect your values, and I know I've discussed this before, but this is really for people who are really, you know, starting to tune into the show, who may not have gotten you guys in episode 66 and 25, even not. As far as this kind of a concept in another state, because People's Party of Texas is exclusive to that state, is there any talk of maybe having the equivalent in Louisiana and Arkansas, just like across the country, like a People's Party of Tennessee, for instance? Is that a possibility, or is that something you guys have looked at?
I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think it's something that we like the idea of, but we don't want it to be like, it's like, okay, if somebody reaches out or we meet someone in Tennessee and it's like, hey, they want to do this, we would literally open source, as far as I believe, we would open source everything that we've created and be like, here, this is what we've done. We'll help you if you want to start a book club, or if you want to attend ours and learn how, like, just something as simple as that. That's kind of what I imagine, to help it be grassroots, instead of like us saying, this is the particular way that you become a People's Party. Like, then how do we know what is going on in Tennessee? You know, but is, you know, there are certain values that I think we would, like you said, have to agree upon. But beyond that, I think we want there to be this like natural thing. But yeah, anybody else?
Yeah, I think go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that would be awesome if other people in other states saw what we were doing and wanted to mirror that and build their own thing. Nothing we have is copyright, steal whatever we got, you know, take what we do and do it. But on that note, I'll say we got a lot of work to do in Texas. So as great as it would be if other states wanted to reach out and do what we're doing, we support them in that, but there's a lot of work to do here.
That's a lot we got to discuss. But I have to share this with you all just and I need clarity. Your official name is People's Party of Texas, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm gonna share the screen so y'all can see this. And I want the audience to see this as well. So I'm gonna do a Google search and do People's Party of Texas just to show you all an example. So when you go to People's Party of Texas on Google, the first results, the People's Party in Texas, nothing related. The ideological foundation of the People's Party of Texas, talking about an earlier political party, late 19th century, non-related. Texas, all this stuff comes up. People's Party here, again, referring to the same party, late 19th century. You keep scrolling down, it talks about the same political party. You keep going down here, you can't understand my example.
Yeah.
This is what we called solved censorship, more or less, or Google more or less controlling what words you type in.
Mhm.
So you have to be really careful when you look for the People's Party of Texas, because there are different ways of suppressing people.
Yeah.
It's not just shadow banning, but it's also just simply typing in a word in a search engine and getting very mixed results. So you have to scroll all the way down, and you still, I mean, we're 25 in, and you still don't have anything at all. So this
It
is what
is.
I had to do to find y'all. I
It
had to
is
do
funny that
Florida, Texas, and then PPOT, and then you get boom is the first two results.
yeah, it's funny that Texas Democrats was actually before People's Party of Texas was actually listed when searching for People's Party of Texas. That's hilarious.
Uh-huh. It's
Yeah.
crazy. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, not surprising,
Um,
but
But beautiful people, be aware when you look for People's Party of Texas, they have an official website that I'm going to link in the episode description. But make sure if you do it through Google, you type in PPOT after People's Party of Texas. Otherwise, they will suppress the results. And just want to share that because those are the kind of things that we have to confront. That's a very small example of what YouTube channels have to confront. And it doesn't matter how big the guest is. Um, you still won't get visibility. And unfortunately, I'm not going to mention names, but that's why I tell people to share the videos and stuff on their platforms. It really helps us out. We've had lots of quote unquote big names on, but everyone's not sharing the videos. And as a result, it's almost like I didn't interview those people at all. So that's why I say it's really important just to share the content. If you do that simple gesture, it goes a long way, you know, and you all do that for sure. Like most of the guests do that. But to all the guests, I mean, if we did that, that'd be a big difference because there's definitely a lot of algorithmic tricks going on and just search engine tricks that go on with this kind of stuff because they don't want the People's Party of Texas to get big. They want to keep them suppressed and they want to have them basically hidden behind a bunch of different names. And we had to do that the first episode to distinguish you from the People's Party in general, the National People's Party, which Cornel West was affiliated with. He dropped out and he became something else. I'm not going to get into him right now. We'll probably save plenty of time to discuss the circuit show a little bit later. But as far as an overall question for us to really talk about the thematic at hand today, how is the penal system in Texas and how does it differ from the rest of the country?
A couple of ways, just right off the top, is that you can't earn wages in the prisons in Texas. Like, I believe it's illegal to pay the employees that are doing work in the state of Texas. So even though they're making licenses, they're making, like, for instance, every courtroom in the state of Texas, every part of it, the bench, everything is made entirely by prisoners in the state of Texas for them for their own. Yeah. And so those are just like a couple of things that make it unique. It Yeah, they're trying to do their own cop city in like Huntsville. Yeah, there are several things that it's I guess it's not unique, but it is what is going on in Texas.
yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's a massive slave labor racket, and just about every facet of the system is designed to funnel money away from poor people into the hands of those who benefit from the prison industrial complex here in Texas. It's huge. I'm involved with the industrial workers of the world, and we have a prison union that we organize with members who are on the inside organizing internally. And the things that the prison system does to quash burgeoning labor movements, such as putting people in the solitary and things like that, just for getting letters or for trying to organize unions, is pretty startling. The fact that somebody has to pay money to call people on the inside. You have to go through pre-approved like apps and stuff like that in order to contact people, to send text to people on the inside, even to send money and things like that. And the people who benefit from that system are getting a cut of all that. And it's, if you really dig into it, it's names that we're all familiar with, who are very prolific in American politics, and it's really no surprise. A lot of the things like military uniforms and police uniforms and flags and stuff like that, those are the kind of things that are produced by the slave labor that comes out of the Texas prison system. It's also why things like, cannabis reform are nearly impossible in this state. It's such an easy way to put people in the prison through something like that. So of course they're not going to want to legalize or to take that off the schedule.
Texas police unions are some of the biggest in the country, and they're very active in politics. And like Curtis said, things like cannabis reform, any sort of criminal justice reform, they will fight it very strongly. And I think I think cannabis is a big indicator at the power that the police has in your state. Because everyone knows it's a great money-making tool and all of that. Like all those politicians in these cannabis legal states are making tons of money. But so to hold off on something like that means they're making more money through prison. When you have a for-profit industry, you incentivize putting people away. There's financial incentivization. So things will be done, right? Everything will be done to increase your profit. You always have to increase those profits. So what do? You got to lock up more people. And Texas is one of those states where, the police just have a lot of power. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it's a slave racket. Yeah.
It's also, you're seeing a lot more with the protest movement growing. It's becoming, and I think it will grow to become a larger pipeline for imprisoning people for other reasons. We're already starting to hear reports of protesters who have been arrested. They've been victims of sexual assault by officers, both in and while they've been under arrest, physical assault, things like that. So the problem is growing. It's certainly not in any way being reduced. It's a growing issue in Texas, and as poverty increases, and especially as these protest movement grows, it's going to get even worse, I think.
As far as the death penalty is concerned, is that something that's still legal in Texas?
Oh yeah.
We're the ones that are experimenting with different ways to do it. Like we recently did the nitrogen, wasn't that?
I don't think that was.
Yeah.
I thought that was like Alabama or something like that. I don't remember.
I know that we're experimenting for sure with how, like, which totally different chemicals just because they're cheaper. And no regards to how painful or even whether this person might be innocent or anything like that.
it's really sad 2024 and we got that kind of stuff going on. Yeah, just like you all were discussing before, slavery under a different name. Really is what it is. People basically locked up in cages. And
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
I don't
on
know how that's helping the system. I don't know how that's rehabilitating people, having them locked up in cages.
it's on the books. It says in the 13th Amendment that prisoners can be slaves. Why do none of the politicians that whoever's watching this vote for, call for an amendment to not have slavery in the, like, slavery still exists. It is on the books. It's right there in black and white. It's a very short fucking amendment. Sorry for cursing.
You're good.
Why does no one that you vote for, why are none of them calling for an amendment to actually end slavery in this country? All those people, I bet the politicians that you love say all these great things about race relations and prison industrial and criminal justice reform and all of that. Why do none of them talk about the legalized slavery that's going on in prisons? But yeah,
Mhm.
anyway.
The only people I've heard even allude to that are people who like are non-traditional, like non-duopoly candidates. Like those are the only people I've heard of to even mention that fact that it's legalized slavery still. And the 13th Amendment, that's what it is. And the crazy thing about it, to your point, OC, aren't the amendments made to be, you can amend the amendment, right? You can change that language.
Yeah,
I
of
mean, it
course,
doesn't,
yeah.
I mean, what does that cost to, change the wording of something?
Who wouldn't vote for that? Like, who wouldn't? You would be crazy to like go against if someone, proposed an amendment to end slavery, in the country. Like they wouldn't do it because everyone would have to support it, because it would be death politically to not support it. So no one's going to introduce it because none of their sponsors or donors want that to end. It's a for-profit, it's a huge for-profit industry that feeds a bunch of other industries. But it would be a simple amendment and it would pass immediately. I just wonder why it hasn't happened. That's all.
So I have an interesting question since we're talking about the criminal justice system and prisons and whatnot. I want you all to explain what community policing means to you all. And then under that point, how do we judge a crime? How do we judge the scale of crime to where it's worthy of people being, I guess, quote unquote, punished for it? Like, how do we judge, what's a crime and what's not a crime?
So I think when I think of community policing, I think of a totally different thing than what happens when I search for it on Google. When I search for it on Google, it's like how to get along with the police and how do you make yourself love the police. And I'm like, that's not what I envision. So what I envision is the community having, you know, I don't know, it would be kind of in my, vision, whatever, up to each community to determine if it's like a council or if it's like just, a set of guidelines or each person is individually vetted and let in, whatever, that is. And then there is this system of like lottery for everyone is trained to protect the community. Everybody is trained to, serve in a role should the time come. And then it's for me, I know that whatever, this is silly or crazy, whatever. I want it to be lottery because I believe that random is more likely to represent everybody and less likely to lead to a certain type of person wanting to do it and they already have an inclination for violence or whatever, I want it to be totally random and I want everyone to have the same standards and to be accountable for that type of role. That's what I imagine. And what would rise to the level of crime? It's like So we're a community, and if you hurt someone in the community, we all suffer. If you take from them, then you have to pay them back. Then you have to do a mediation, or depending on the severity of the crime. And again, all of that stuff would depend on your community. And so that's kind of what I imagine, is that it's very geographically, specific, but there are like general guidelines that that the idea is to protect the community and each other, and that when somebody breaks that contract, you have to pay for it, just like anything. And I think that when there's like a crime, most crimes are crimes of desperation. They could be solved by a lot of other things. And so like in this society where we're doing community policing, I believe, it's like, oh, maybe it's a mental health issue. We will get them mental health help. Maybe it's an addiction issue. We will help them, depending on what it is and how much there is like rehabilitation and actual rehabilitation, not locking someone up and either making them an employee or just making them a victim in a cage. So yeah, that's kind of what I imagine. It's obviously not all fleshed out, but that's my vision-ish.
I think, it's one of those things where it's like people might say that an idea or something is utopian or impossible or whatever, wishful thinking. And I think it's because of the society that we're in. And I think, yes, in the state that we are in now, maybe some things aren't possible. But like when you live in a world where like, the people are pushed to the limit in every way, they're not, they're being propagandized by their own government. They're being fed unhealthy things. They don't have health, period, like they don't have health care. They're not able to take care of their body or their mind. They're living paycheck to paycheck if they're lucky, with no hope for opportunity or advancement or being able to afford to go back to school or anything like that. Any access to homes or businesses through loans or credit or anything like that is a fantasy now for most people. And when you're in a situation like that we've been brought to by, I don't even know what you want to call it, late stage capitalism, whatever you want to call it, then yeah, there's going to be an increase in crime. There's going to be a lot of desperate people. There's going to be all of that. But if we are living in a different society, then something like community policing makes perfect sense. You don't need a military to police these people who are unhappy and struggling and pushed to desperate points. You wouldn't need such overwhelming force if people were happy. Someone who is happy in their life, who has a fulfilling career that makes them enough money to live their life and still gives them time to pursue their hobbies or passions, why would they go out and commit crimes? Why would they do that? Why would so yeah, it requires, these things are possible. It's easy to roll your eyes at like, community policing or whatever, but it's like a lot would have to change, and they're not possible. That's all I would say.
Yeah, and you really, I mean, the term community police, there's a lot of big ideas you got to unpack. One, community. The United States is really bad at building communities. We don't do it well. In fact, we do the opposite. We like to destroy communities. For anyone who isn't in power. Now, for people in power, they have great communities. They love them, and they're really good at building communities. For those who are in power, for everyone else, we destroy those communities. So for community policing to work, one, we have to have communities, which we certainly don't have. Go to like any suburb in the United States. Is there a community there? No. You have disparate groups of people who may live next to each other, but there's no community among those people. You might have a community around small pockets, a church, a club of some kind. But those tend to be based on race and class more than anything else. So those are the real communities that we're forced to live in. So one, for community policing to work, you have to start building community. So that's step one. That starts to solve a lot of problems. Because what police do now is their jobs are to break up communities, right? To put people in prison, which destroys community. So the idea of policing, its primary purpose to destroy communities, to protect private property, which is another thing that we have to start calling into question in order for policing to change. The notion of that the primary function of the police is to protect private property above all else. They certainly don't prevent violent crime. They don't do that. So that idea is nonsense. Police don't prevent violent crime. They might respond to a violent crime after it's been done. They might respond to a sexual assault, although statistics show that they don't even do that. They might respond to a murder, although statistics show they don't do that, and they're not even good at solving them. But while they can't do those things, they still have a monopoly on violence, and they still use that violence. So when you start thinking about alternatives to police now, one, you have to build a community. Two, you have to start thinking about ways to solve society's problems without the use of violence. Think about traffic, something simple like that. Why do police need to enforce traffic? What the heck does an armed paramilitary organization have anything to do with enforcing traffic safety? Those are two completely unrelated concepts. Yet somehow the two got linked, and now that's what traffic is. Traffic is police threatening violence on people who break laws that we have no part in creating whatsoever. Because those laws were designed to protect the private property of powerful, wealthy people. So yeah, I think to start to answer these questions about how do we build alternatives to policing, we have to start questioning these very basic things that, to Athena and Osi's point, we've kind of been taught to take for granted. Oh, we need police because we'll be unsafe without them. Well, we're already unsafe, and police don't fix that. So how do we start to fix those problems without that violence?
Fast forward a little bit. Let's just say that the ideas that you all have proposed come to fruition, and we're at a point where quote unquote community policing is a reality and is an abstract concept. Would there still be an issue where you would have to involve attorneys? Since it would be at the citizen level, would there still be issues dealing with a citizen trying to like sue another citizen because they wouldn't feel that their crime was like committed or something? Would you have those kind of issues, even if you did have community policing?
I think yeah, but you would have people in your own community mediating these situations. So it's like your friend, like, hey, why are you upset with Tom? Like, you know that it was not on purpose or whatever, like it's a lot easier to, even if it's not your friend that's mediating it, it's someone from your community. It's not someone that lives in a nice community or like lives in somewhere totally different than you, telling you guys just have to get along, and then, or arresting one of you. Like, it would be like, I feel like there would be this idea of regenerative culture. So we want to ideally rebuild the relationship between the people. Like that's what it's about. It's about making the community whole and making this person who's been hurt whole. And so if that means an apology, if that means like like actually paying it back monetarily, working, whatever, like whatever it is, I think that it could be worked out just amongst adults. And I do think, yes, there are situations that are more complex, but I think that a community can come together and decide the right thing to do.
It would be nice to have a system that wasn't so complicated that you needed a lawyer. You needed a $20,000 lawyer to figure it out. You know, it would be nice if that ability to, especially, you know, if you're innocent, to protect yourself and to defend yourself wasn't gatekept by, you know, having to pass a bar or be a lawyer, study it for thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours. You know, and if you don't have the money, like, all right, go fuck yourself. Like, good luck, you know. And it would be nice. I think laws will always, you know, I can't really think of any sort of like organized human society that didn't have like basic, you know, like town charter or like just like back to Hammurabi's code. But like, I think there would still be like, when a community organizes, they decide, you know, what is and isn't okay. And those would be the laws that everyone sort of lives by, and like everyone has to agree. I think there should be like constant agreement. You always have to check in and make sure everybody's cool with it. But yeah, you would still, I would hope that you wouldn't need lawyers. I think that's
That's one of the cool things. So Athena mentioned that we last year we employed we created what we call our foundational principles and principles of unity. These are kind of guiding. They're the closest thing we have to like laws, so to speak, that kind of help the People's Party of Texas run. And we really try to use this as an example for other organizations. And they're really simple. Like you can read them in about like a minute, right? They're not complicated. And they really set why are we, as we have come together to form this community, which we are. That's really at the core what the People's Party of Texas is, the community. Why are we here, and how do we agree to build a relationship with each other? And that's easy. Like those are easy things to measure. If we run into a conflict, it's a lot easier to say, all right, are we adhering to our foundational principle? Are we here for the same reasons? And are we relating with each other in the way that we agreed to at the beginning? Those are much easier problems to solve and to answer, especially when conflict comes about. Then let's navigate this this maze of language that is purposely written to be hard to understand, or that you have to study. Like you shouldn't have to study bylaws to know how things work. It should be obvious. It should be intuitive, because that's how people generally are. And I think by our example, we try to encourage all communities and all organizations to think about running things differently. You don't need 40 pages of bylaws to stand up an organization. You need a couple of core statements, a couple of beliefs, a reason for you all to be together, part of the same movement, and commitments to how you want to relate to each other above all else.
Regarding, we're going to make a little transition over to what we discussed before about some of the events that you all have been a part of and sponsored. I want to get a shout out to some of these people. And once I name these organizations, you all can maybe briefly tell who they are. You may be directly affiliated with them. But I noticed that when you all did the screening, I think it was in January, you all did the screening about the prison system. And then you have an upcoming one called Beyond Walls. And then I listened to that portion. I didn't watch any of the actual clips or movie. I didn't tune in, but I did listen to the panel discussion, which I thought was really interesting. I believe that was a January event. Reimagining Safety is the one that's coming up, and the one that you all had was Beyond Walls. I'm probably confusing the two, but I saw Dallas Brown Berets, the Texas Harm Reduction Alliance, DHREAM, which we've talked about some. I know Curtis has something to do with that. Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, Lioness DL. Can you give any kind of brief description of any of those organizations that I just mentioned?
Yeah, I'll go through the ones that I I mean, I know them all now, but yeah. All right. So the Beyond Walls was a movie that was 5 short films that was put together by the Working Films Production Company, which is a nonprofit that seeks to like increase awareness of prisoners' stories and give them a chance to become filmmakers and support their dreams in that way. So it was really cool. They helped us put on the event. They helped us provide honorariums for all of the panelists. And so if you know anybody and anybody watching, you want to do this, go to Working Films Productions and Beyond Walls, and they will help you set up a screening in your area. And they will like pay for everything and help you get panelists and all that. And so most of the panelists, I think we got all of these panelists, but I know that they did put it on their website, and I'm pretty sure one of the groups that I'm going to talk about, they like they're the reason they came. And so that was the Fight Toxic Prisons, which is part of the No More Letcher prison. And they came from like Fort Worth because they're doing another campaign, and they just came like they just happened to come. And so they're on social media, Fight Toxic Prisons. Um, I would look them up. The DFW or the Dallas Brown Berets. We have done a free store with them in Garland. We have helped with a march, and we're going to help with a march that's coming up against this SB4, which is a whole topic all its own. But they're really active. They're doing like a whole bunch of like particularly Mexican and like Central American indigenous language learning, culture learning, like because a lot of us, myself included, like my dad was adopted by an American, so like I barely learned Spanish, and let alone my half of my culture I just don't know, you know. I know that what my dad knew up until he was 10 years old, and so now I'm able to take these classes. They have little Mexico classes. They teach you about like indigenous food versus like Spanish food, and like how they've kind of been conflated. And so yeah, they're doing really cool things. Um, there's also the Denton Left, and that was one of the panelists. And they like it's really cool because it seems like every one of a lot of these groups are doing similar things, but it's in their like area. And then we are like, hey, let's hold hands, you know, like let's do this thing together. And it's really cool. And then we see them starting to work together. Um, the Lioness Coalition is a like ladies that are incarcerated. It's like ladies incarceration coalition for formerly incarcerated folks. And their executive director came, and that was really cool. We got to hear her story. And so she was previously incarcerated, as well as the executive director for the Texas Harm Reduction Coalition. And they, you know, told us their story. They had their own unique stories and insights. And it was just really cool because we put out this ask on the internet, and for one of them, they filled out a form. They actually like filled out the form that you put out to the interweb. And then like, you know, it was really cool. It was like this random person, and they actually have experience, and they're, you know, this particularly lady incarcerated coalition. So that was really cool. And then there are the other ones that I'll let Curtis talk about.
Sure. Thanks, Athena. Yeah, Kiko, there's a few other groups that volunteered to be served as panelists during that event. DREAM, you mentioned, a group that I'm involved with. The Dallas Fort Worth Harm Reduction, Education, and Access Movement. And we're committed to providing safe use supplies and spreading the gospel of harm reduction, so to speak, around North Texas. And for those of you who are not familiar with harm reduction, what at its core, harm reduction means that we meet everyone who suffers with substance abuse or addiction is in control of their own path to recovery. But no one else gets to dictate how that recovery looks. And whatever path they're on, they deserve health and safety in whatever way possible. So we are committed to ensuring that everyone has access to medical care to safe use supplies, and that they aren't just discarded by society. So we do a lot of outreach work in the community, especially with the houseless community in Fort Worth, Dallas, and Denton, in the North Texas area. And we see all of the problems that not only the houseless crisis in America causes, but various addiction problems as well. We encounter things like fentanyl, the overdose crisis. We have people that we know that are very close to us who have fell to the fentanyl crisis in America. And our goal is just to keep as many people alive as we can, and to support them on their path to recovery in whatever way that looks, because it's not for us to tell people what recovery looks like. So that's DHREAM. And the substance abuse problems that we encounter on the outside are encountered on the inside as well, inside the prison system, and obviously like even worse and exacerbated. Another group that participate in the panel is another group I belong to, the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World. That is a global industrial labor union. And within the IWW, we have the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, which is a union for incarcerated workers. So for those who are on the inside, and this goes across the United States, various unions that are organized within prisons within the United States. We have people trying to advocate for their own rights, and stop things like, you know, the slave labor that occurs, and demand fair treatment as all workers should have. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the IWW, check it out, iww.org. It's the labor movement in the United States has really been, I mean, it's been destroyed significantly over the centuries. And the idea of industrial unionization is something that not a lot of people have been exposed to. The idea that when we think of unions, we think, oh, that means a bunch of workers gather and demand raises and vacation time and things like that. And those are great things that all workers should demand. But for industrial unionization, the ideas go much deeper. The idea that workers shouldn't just demand things from bosses, they should be the bosses. The idea that there should be no owning class, that all workers should own every aspect of what they produce. And it's a really revolutionary idea that it's contrary to a lot of the way our society was built. And it touches a lot on the problems that we encounter in the prison system, and the way that if you think the way prison laborers are treated is bad, that's really the direction our whole country is headed right now. So to me, prisons are it's a glimpse into the future. That's where we're headed if we as workers don't organize and demand a better world.
OCD, you want to add something to what they were saying as far as these organizations that sponsor the screenings and the future screenings?
No, I think they covered it beautifully, both of y'all. The only thing I would add is, I'm excited that something that I was always hoping would happen, that there would be this collaboration and this network building between all of these different local groups and community organizations in the area, and that we would all work together towards common goals. I think it's a really beautiful, awesome thing that it's happening. Yeah.
Oh, there's one more group that I forgot. I apologize. I forgot to mention the SRA, the Socialist Rifle Association. They're another national group. We work with them very closely. They do really cool things in the community, and they are committed to spreading firearm education across communities that traditionally that kind of education has not been accessible to. So, when you think of guns, of Second Amendment rights, a lot of people's minds immediately go to kind of more right-wing organizations, and the SRA is committed to changing that mentality. They do a lot of things. They've been involved in some of the local, I don't know if you heard about some of the anti-trans protests that have taken place in the North Texas area. they've helped protect people in the community who have been under threat from right-wing violence. So SRA, Social Rifle Association, is a great organization to look into if you're interested in that sort of thing.
When we talk about the recent filming and the upcoming filming, which is obviously going to be available through People's Party of Texas website, I think you made it publicly available, if sharing the link. Was there a story that really stood out to you all when you were listening to the panel discussion? Even now, like, did something stand out during that event? And do you all have any personal connections with the carceral system or people that you know?
One story that stood out to me was Tony, the panelist from the Brown Berets, and he talked about how the police literally used him as like an example. Like after he had gotten out, they're like, hey, you want to come and like speak to these kids and like, whatever, make them not break bad or whatever. And they didn't pay them or anything. They were just like, thank you, that was great, you're so great. And like that was it. And they just used him like it was just a prop. And it's just like literally they keep using you forever. Like that is the mentality, so that really stood out to me, and it really like made me just mad that that idea that another person could be above another person and not recognize them and like I know it's just something that happens every day, but it shouldn't. It's gross. And then somebody in a position of authority that's supposed to be protecting you is literally like putting you up on an auction block. Like it's just like, yeah, it's gross. So that, and my personal connection, I have like a family member that was paralyzed in a set up drug deal by the cops. And so like he was lucky, he got paralyzed, like he didn't go to jail. And eventually he got a settlement and all this because it was a cop that had shot him and whatever ended up happening. And so it, ruined his life to the point, like, even though he wasn't ultimately, he was still, committing crimes out of desperation. And when they're like literally as a paraplegic. And so like there was a time where he might go back or something like that. And instead of doing that, he killed himself. And like, it's like, yeah, that's how bad it is, and he was like 23, and then my only other like connection, I've been really lucky, like, but my dad is a Mexican American, and he worked in the restaurant business in Colorado, and he would get off late, and like I said, he worked in the restaurant business, so he'd get off at like 2 a.m. or something, and he'd be driving home, and this cop stopped him, and they said that he was drunk, and he refused, and then they made him blow anyways, and he didn't have a thing, so they just kept hitting him, and they like beat him unconscious, then arrested him. Then he was taken to the Denver County Jail. We get a call at like 4 a.m. He's in jail because we were wondering where he is. Like, we're calling hospitals, we don't know. And then we go and pick him up. We have to file a lawsuit because it was illegal. Like he was not drunk at all. He had just gotten off of work. Not that people don't, but whatever. The guy had just beaten him, and like I don't know if there was badge footage or whatever, but there was some way obviously to prove, like the cop admitted it or something. He said he talked back, and I know my dad, yeah, I'm sure he did. Like he said something that was just like pig or something like that, like maybe something little, but like that was it, and it was over. It didn't matter. And yeah, so my dad ultimately got a small settlement out of it, got his record expunged and all of that, but still had to deal with that, still got beaten by cops just for, like, we don't know, for saying pig maybe. Like, why was he even pulled over? He wasn't driving bad. Like, I don't know. So those are my only connections.
And no amount of settlement money will erase those psychological wounds that you go through, and sometimes permanent physical wounds. But like to be violated that way, there's no amount of money that's going to fix that.
Yeah, for those, I mean, I can't speak for people from other parts of the country, but for Texans, the lower on the economic scale you go, the more and more likely you are to know people directly who have been involved in the penal system, in one way or another. I think most of us, almost everyone I know, knows at least someone who has been locked up or put in jail or spent time in prison, mostly for drugs. And that's the typical. One of the panelists with DHREAM, she spoke about her boyfriend's currently incarcerated, and he's a young person, and it's for weed. So, hey, weed, your life is ruined, you know. And that's how it is, because as soon as you put somebody in prison, and you didn't just destroy their life, you destroyed their family's life too. And that's the real tragedy. Even if a family, the lingering effects of incarcerating somebody, one, it costs society a tremendous amount, right? You've taken somebody productive out of society. Their family now because the families outside have to support the person inside. People who don't have experience in the prison system don't realize that. And they have to spend a lot of money just to do things like send a text, send them packages, sometimes even write letters. Now we found out that we were trying to send people letters on the inside, and now we have to go through a system where the prison system simply takes a picture of the letter on like a tablet and then scans it and then gives that. So they don't even get often they don't get the physical letter anymore. They just get some digital copy. And of course, it's heavily redacted and edited for security or whatever, bullshit reason they decide to say so. It's to put one person in prison destroys several lives, and it costs society a tremendous amount, beyond just feeding the one person who's in prison. And it's not just about taking care of them, it's about taking care of the whole. You've left a huge gap in the community, and really damaged that community from that. And that was a big takeaway from the film. I think all of the stories pointed to that idea that to lock somebody up, it wasn't just hurting that person, it was hurting everyone around them.
As far as we will keep this topic related in our mind when we make this transition to discuss the presidential field of 2024. I know Curtis may have to leave within the next 15 minutes or so, but hopefully we can stay on a little bit longer, even after Curtis departs. But regardless, I appreciate, Curtis coming on to the show and the time that he has spent with us today, so once he does, leave in a couple of minutes or whenever he decides to leave, we definitely want to, acknowledge you and appreciate you coming out to the show. And, we can't wait to have you all back on again, but we're going to make the transition. And my question is really directed towards kind of the gist of our discussion up to this point about prison abolition and community policing. Is there a candidate that's in the field that reflects those personal values when it comes to what you envision as far as like what policing should be? The drug war that's constant. Is there a candidate in this 2024 field that you feel you could get behind? I know that the People's Party of Texas, I'm not sure if that's the People's Party of Texas endorsing a candidate, but I know that there's been a lot of love shown towards Jasmine Sherman, for instance, just based on some of the X posts I've seen. But I just want to give you all the opportunity to assess the field. Anybody that you want to mention, anybody that you want to criticize or praise, and as far as just the issues themselves.
I personally have done a lot of background research, is how I will put it. on the, like, well, I think I have the list of, like, I, since
Athena got that list, y'all. You better watch out.
since that last election, like every time since like 2016, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to be in the same position. Even if I personally like I'm going to like feel a little better about it, you know? And so every single third party, or even like fake third party or corporate third party, I signed up for their email, I joined their Discord, I whatever, because I'm like, well, let's see what's real. This, I like the name of this, this I don't like the name of, but, and I won't say which ones those are, but I'm sure you can guess. So there are several like corporate parties that are still, of course, completely fine and existing. And that's like No Labels, Forward Party, and Good Party. I think out of them, No Labels and Forward Party have some ballot access. And so that's interesting because, of course, they have the most money. So, like, that's part of the, like, that's the biggest reason why, like, it's hard. And I can't tell you how much the Secretary of State in every state will make it hard for an independent. They will make you fail the test, whether or not you actually fail the test to become a deputy registrar. I've heard multiple stories of, especially older people that are like not used to working a tablet or whatever. And then the person's just like, oh, you did it wrong, you fail, like, you can't be one. Once they hear that you're an independent. And so, like, you're facing all of that, but having the money, like, there's a bunch of states you can just buy it. And if you have the money, again, to buy like canvassers, you can get the ridiculous amount of signatures that you need in each state. And not every state is the same. Some states it's really easy. So those are what I would say the like most corporate, like explicitly corporate ones. So they're going to get ballot access. No Labels claims that they're going to do a unity ticket where they have a Democrat and Republican. And right now the popular rumor is that it's Joe Manchin and Larry Hogan. So like two very conservative people, very corporate friendly, like nothing revolutionary and nothing different from Biden and Trump, but they haven't decided that. They're supposedly leaving it up to the people, but I was a little involved in that, and yeah, I can't get off the email list at this point. Like, and it's now I'm kind of like just curious, but like still I tried to get off for a while, and I was like, man, they really need people. They like ignore my unsubscribe. But Forward Party like was just incredibly corporate, and then the Roe v. Wade decision happened, and then oh my gosh, it's just like chaos, because it was like there's all these like libertarians, and then there's all these people that are like not really, they're like I would say misogynist, like, and I hate to like call anyway, but they like really hate women, like the way they were like celebrating Roe v. Wade, and I'm like, well, how does this affect you? Like, how in the world? You're the one who's bringing up this subject, and it's like a huge loss to anybody that could be affected by not being able to have a child and needing to get an abortion of some kind. Like, uh, um, so yeah, okay, going down. The Good Party is basically like a corporate place they have a bunch of open source resources for you. Like they supposedly have a virtual AI campaign manager, and they have like a like mailing list generator, and all of this stuff is like very techy, and that's cool. But it is all very corporate, and they're like, we're not a political party, but we want you to run, we want you to be independent. And so it seems like they're saying the right things, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence. But they are getting stuff like ranked choice voting and star voting and approval voting, and they're talking about those things. And so I will give them that credit. Then there's RFK, and the all I can say is that one of the people working for them also worked for the People's Party and is accused of like mismanaging that whole thing. They were key, integral in that, and they now work for the RFK campaign. So that's all I'll say. You can Google it. You can go to Open Secrets and you can see who they paid, and yeah, you'll figure it out. The Cornel West campaign is
I just
interesting.
want to be clear,
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
you don't mean our People's Party, you mean the other People's Party.
Yeah, not the People's Party of Texas, the MPP, which has ballot access in Florida, and I don't know if they will maintain that, but they don't have it anywhere else, despite what they claimed. That's the reason Cornel West left. Like, he also is so naive that he was like, "Oh, it's legit now. I'm sure they have ballot access everywhere." He hasn't checked in on it this whole time. As far as we know, he got the letters from the Black Voices Circle. He got like all the petitioners. He got all this information, and he just said, "I'm not involved. I'm not involved." And now when he wanted to run, he's like, "Oh, I got a party." And he, as far as I can tell, having worked within that, it's naivety, whether on purpose or not. That's what it is. And it's like, okay, so you chose a party that doesn't exist, and then you chose a party with ballot access, and then you chose to run to get ballot access. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, why wouldn't you still run in the Green Party and try to doesn't make sense. Apparently his wife also does not support him, and she says that he's a spoiler. So I don't know how difficult it is to run as a president when your wife doesn't support you. So but whatever. For the Green Party, I will start with Jasmine Sherman, because everywhere I go, they start with Jill Stein. They almost exclusively say that they're already the candidate. And no, the primary is not until like August, which is ridiculous. But they have a bunch of like localities. And of course, because of for so many reasons, the Green Party, like I feel like there's a lot of these, not to, talk bad about anybody in any party. Like, there are mixes of people in every party. But one of my issues with the Green Party is just like how white and overeducated they are. And like, that's fine to be overeducated, but then they look down on everybody. And it's like, okay, so this again, they don't have the non-hierarchical mindset in the Green Party. Like, some do, but not as a foundational principle. It's like, oh, cool, it'd be cool if you guys could do that. So I see that with the like anointing of Jill Stein, and then watching the free and equal debate and how awful she was, like the worst one there, like, and literally forgotten on questions because she was so bad. Like, the libertarians blew her out of the water. Like, no offense, I guess, but that's what happened.
You don't have to say no offense.
I don't know who I'm saying no offense to. Yeah.
You talk your stuff. No, I mean, hey, at this point, it's like, I know once it's published, everyone's going to see it, and I'm not hiding away from anybody. There's a lot you said there. I'm going to let Curtis and Osi talk, because there's a lot I have to say about it. Honestly, I've been holding back a lot of stuff. I have a lot of people that follow this channel. They're really large accounts that follow this channel. And a lot of people want to pretend that they don't know who I am. And that's totally fine. And I'm not going to really speak to that issue, but I will speak to a couple of things that you raised up. But I'll give Curtis first, since he may have to go soon. And then I'll let OC comment on, the field of candidates.
Thanks, Kiko. I don't have a ton to say, to be honest. I'm really just not interested. I think it's all bullshit. I will say this, and I'll say this to anyone, and I say this to myself included, because I'll probably vote for somebody. Whoever you vote for, ask yourself the hard question. Are you thinking about just yourself? If you're voting for somebody who condones genocide, you are responsible for that. I don't care what other issues you're facing. You are condoning genocide. Ask yourself that hard question. Is it worth it? Is protecting your own very small piece of interest worth the lives of other people just because you don't know them? Is endorsing a system that systematically hurts a lot of your fellow humans on this planet worth you protecting whatever small piece of power you think you might have? So yeah, it's I won't vote for anyone who supports in any way the current genocide. To me, it's such an easy litmus test for me. Like, what else matters at this point? So that's really, that's all I'll say. Athena has put a tremendous amount of effort and research, and if I have a question, she's who I'm going to go to to ask, as far as who she feels is the best person that supports the kind of things that we in the People's Party of Texas are about. And again, I think just on a practical level, most of the things that affect our daily lives aren't controlled by a president. There are far more important issues in our communities. If you are really not sure how to help, you want to change the world, things are bad, voting for president isn't going to fix those things for you. Now, getting on the ground, joining any movement and starting to help people directly, that's going to be it's going to be better for you, and it's going to be better for the world. So I encourage people who feel frustrated by the current duopoly and that it sucks. It does suck. But you're not going to vote that suck away. Now you can help people, and that's going to not only make your life better, but it's going to make the people's lives that you help better. So
to your point, Curtis, I don't know if you have the bounce or not, but I do want to say this while you're on camera. I actually just had this conversation yesterday with Brittany Jones, episode 104 technically, because I had an episode after that one. So you all are technically 106.
Mhm.
And I was talking to Brittany Jones on camera and saying how I think the biggest thing, if you're going to put stock into this circus, and that's what it is, honestly, it's a big distraction. It's a circus. I mention it because I understand that it does affect a lot of people's minds. And if we are going to like be involved in this polite political process is what I would call it, because I mean it looks cute on paper, but if you really peel back the layers, I mean the Congress has way more control than the president does. There's so much more that goes into power than this figurehead. But regardless, if you're going to support the figurehead that's the head of the state, write down 10 things that you care about the most on a sheet of paper. Just exit out every other thought process you have. Focus on 10 things you care about the most, and think about who reflects those 10 things the most, because those are priorities. You're making the case that this is such an important, sacred process. Okay, then write down things that you care about, not voting against somebody. Write down things that you care about and who support those things that you care about the most. Otherwise, it's just you're not really supporting it, for those reasons. You're just doing it because it's cool to do. It's just a team sport mentality at that point. Oh, you hate the Yankees, but you like the Red Sox. You might as well just be cheering on the team at that point. You're not even, you're not legitimizing the process that's already illegitimate. I guess that's all I would add to it.
Definitely. And I'd also say that if, a lot of people, and I've certainly been the victim of this and guilty of this myself, right? You get scared into wanting to vote for one person or another. Stop playing that game. Don't let them scare you. Like, one candidate or another going to make the country worse? The country is already bad, and the president doesn't cause it to be bad. I think the president is a reflection of how bad society is, as opposed to the cause of it. So, if we vote for Trump, we're going to be fascist. Do you live in Texas? We're already fascist. Texas is already a fascist. It's not going to make it worse, than it already is. That problem isn't going to be solved by a president. It's going to be solved by people on the ground coming together. So that's who you vote for. Now, by voting for somebody, you are going to do things like endorse, a corporation to make more weapons to be used overseas. Those are things that a president could have the authority to do and to declare war. So I'm always gonna, if my conscience says that I'm never going to vote for somebody who's pro-war. So Well, I do gotta hop off. Thank you so much, Kiko, and thanks Athena and Osi for chatting with me today. And I'll talk with you all later. Sorry for jumping off. It's Saturday and I have sick kids and stuff. So
No, you're
we gotta deal
totally
with that.
fine. I'm Curtis Halsey, part of the DREAM organization. That's spelled DHREAM.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I'll drop it in the chat.
organizations that there's so many organizations out there, and I just don't want to confuse the two. But I'm going to link all your information in the description. Yeah, thanks again for linking that. And Curtis, I can't wait to have the conversation with you again. And you enjoy your day. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Kiko. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
OC, do you want to comment on the field of candidates? Because I know Athena has been doing the homework, and I follow you all so much on X, and I got to tell you, it's refreshing to get not because we probably agree on a lot of stuff. I mean, y'all just so cool. I feel like I've known y'all for years, but it's just good to be on X and not just see people calling people names and just this and that, but people who are actually giving their views and stances and welcoming like other people to comment on it, not just calling people these ugly names and stuff. I like to see people actually putting in the work in the communities. That gives legitimacy to what they're doing. Whatever they have to say, I'll pay attention to it because they're showing me that their actions reflect, how they feel inside. But there's a lot of stuff on X that's just so toxic to me, and it's inevitable that it's going to be on there. But the People's Party of Texas has been a great resource for me these last few years. I give a shout out to Tracy Carson for even introducing us, because I wouldn't know who you were if it wasn't for her being invited to that panel about a year and a half ago. But OC, do you have any opinions about what's going on in 2024?
It'd be better if you asked me that closer to the election. I try to stay, like, I watched the I can't remember the name of the
The
debate,
free
but
and equal?
the free and equal debate. I watched that and it was interesting. I was sort of surprised by, I was mostly surprised by the libertarian candidates. They said a lot of things that I didn't expect them to say. I still think with libertarianism, there's still that, it's almost a wolf in sheep's, it's just like there's still that like specter of like you know hyper capitalism, sort of like, because they were like, they were saying things like they're very, I guess, pro I don't know what the word to put it, like free immigration, open immigration or whatever. But it
Mm-hmm.
was like, so they can like work for, so they can have like cheap labor was like the subtext. It wasn't any sort of like moral stance or anything. They were just like, oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, that's more people we can exploit. And so it's just like, there's still that like, there's so many things that I like agreed with them on, but I still know that there's just that undertone in everything that they say. But I actually voted for Jill Stein, and I mean, people might be upset that they say I voted, I helped Trump win, but like in 2016, whatever it was, I voted for Jill Stein in the general election, and I don't think she shouldn't have been on that stage. I'll be honest. Like Athena alluded to, like they forgot to go to her at one point.
Oh
They were
God.
just gonna move on, and she was just like, "Hey, I didn't, whatever." And that's how much of a non-fact. And again, like I voted for this woman, so I don't mean to like trash her, but it's like I think she should step aside. Like she's just not it right now. Be vice president, have an advisory role or whatever. She still did a lot of great work in the Green Party for sure. I don't want to discount any of that. Jasmine Sherman's really interesting, but like, yeah, I'm gonna get more in the weeds of this closer to the election when their policies are more concrete and they've had more statements out there that I can review. Getting into it so early is just like, just for my mental health. It's like not good. Like you said, it's a circus and it's meant to make you emotional. And so I don't want to get too deep into that. And like, plus Athena is there. She's been really in the weeds, like she said, joining these Slacks, actually doing these video calls for these different campaigns and like really seeing what they're about. And not just statements or websites or whatever, but like in there. And so she's a wealth of resources on this topic in particular. And another thing that Curtis alluded to, I mean, I have simple non-starters for candidates, and one is war. It's why I voted for Tulsi Gabbard in the primaries in 2020, because at the time she was, to me, the most anti-war candidate at the time. That's what her statements and platform reflected. Things might be a little different now, but being anti-war is number one for me, because I think that feeds everything else, from like drugs to prison to climate or the environment, and everything else. And another issue that I want to say I'm passionate about, but don't quiz me on it. I'm like really getting into it now, but like I'm big on the environment in particular. And so I think that nuclear energy is something that should be more seriously discussed as a viable alternative for its efficiency and its lack of harmful emissions. And when I've asked other candidates in the past, the only real what would you call it, pushback or whatever, would be, you know, the waste, and what do you do with the waste, and safety. And like those are two very manageable issues, I think. It would just take like a concerted, serious effort. And nuclear reactors are not the same as they were in the 80s. There's no like Chernobyls or 3 Mile Islands that are going to be happening unless you build it on a fucking fault line like they do in Japan. Maybe don't do that. But like if you don't do that, they're very safe. And I think that is, and there are other technologies around this type of power source that are being developed and have been developed. And I think that should be like a serious talking point of like moving more of our, if we really want to have like a viable alternative option, and if emissions are really your most important sticking point, then nuclear energy is something you want to look at. But I'll see if there are any candidates that have those, and there are other things, of course. But yeah, you know, if you have us back on again closer to the election, I will have a better answer for you.
But before I let Athena, because I know Athena probably has something to say for sure, I wanted to add this in because and I'm not trying to be incendiary in any kind of way, but the next interview I drop, which is interview 104 with Brittany Jones, is probably the most explosive interview I've had on the forum up until this point. And just to give people kind of a warning, it is, I don't know why I'm saying this, first of all, because it's going to be actually technically published before this one, but it's really a reflection, because I was jaw dropped yesterday when I was hearing this information. There's a lot going on with the Sherman campaign and the Jones campaign. Like they're basically at war with each other right now. And it involves the indigenous rights policy. Brittany Jones claims that she had a land bank policy way before the Sherman campaign even thought of the idea. And that's what Jones argues. She didn't call it land bank, she called it indigenous rights, but basically everything was already on the site. So there's a big back and forth going on. I'm staying out of that. I'm just posting the information. but I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of reaction to the Brittany Jones interview that's released, episode 104, because Jasmine Sherman has become really elevated within the last 6 months or so. And Jasmine's been on the show twice. Jasmine decided when I sent the invitation out this latest time that they did not want to come on to the show. They thought a better alternative would be her vice presidential candidate to come onto the show, their vice presidential candidate. And it was a great interview. Tender Blue Bear, episode 102. I urge my listeners to go watch the interview with Tender Blue Bear and Jasmine Sherman's interviews too. Their interviews were very interesting. We talked a lot about the houseless crisis, these different issues, the environment. Jasmine was at the end of fossil fuels protest in New York City. That's when they met Cornel West there. Speaking of Cornel West, a lot of people have commented, Kiko, why don't you invite Cornel on the show? I've invited Cornel West on the show for the past 18 months since the inception of Kiko's Free Thinkers Forum. Cornel West is aware of who I am. I've gotten 2 representatives that know Cornel West very closely, direct messages to him in my behalf, no response whatsoever. I've sent 3 different messages to people that are part of his 4-team press group right now. No response whatsoever, completely ignore me. The emails are going through. So again, you can take that for what it's worth. Claudia De La Cruz as well. I've called her office 2 different times. I've sent probably 4 different emails. They went through successfully, no response whatsoever. All I can do is do that. I give the people what they want. I send the request. If people come on, they come on. They don't, they don't. Jill Stein agreed to come on. I think there's something good to say about that. I don't think she did a good job at all at the free and equal elections debate. I have a lot of questions for Jill Stein. A lot of these people are in the race are bigger names already. They've been in the presidential cycles for years now. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I haven't endorsed anybody. I'm not going to endorse anyone on this show because people are asking me, who are you going to endorse? I'm not endorsing anybody because it's not fair to those people. First of all, they run for office, have a show, and I think it's unprofessional to say I'm supporting somebody. I have them on my show. They're courteous enough to come onto my show and share their views. And I'm like, oh, by the way, I already got my mind made up. I'm going to support this person anyway. I don't think that that's cool. That's me personally. But again, I'm an open book right now. Just if people ask me a question, I'm going to answer the question. There's flaws in all these candidates. There's positives and negatives in all these candidates. But I do lean towards certain people. But I guess, Athena, if you have anything to respond to what I just said or to what Osi was discussing earlier.
Yeah, I would say, one, to respond to the nuclear energy thing. Jasmine Sherman actually has a policy that talks about the waste, talks about all of it. So the 4th generation nuclear reactors. And so I would look into that. And there's also an audiobook, so it can be read to you. And I mean, I also pretty much wear it. Like, I like Jasmine Sherman the most. They align the most with my values and what, like, completely abolishing and letting out prisoners, I didn't know the controversy on the land back, but I also know that they have had a policy also that wasn't called land back. So like, if it's just so annoying to me to get caught up in these little things. Like, I'm like, because somebody else was like, oh, they said they're gonna have ballot access in all 50 states, but they don't. And I'm like, well, they're counting that they're gonna get the Green Party. So like, if that's true, and they're also counting that the Green Party is going to get it, which they may not. So that's how it's a politician thing. It's like they reveal that, oh, I'm still a politician, even though it's a minor thing. I feel like that was politicking or whatever. And same thing with the land back thing, both of them. And it's just like, really, it matters who did it first. Like, it should just be like, you know what, you're right, policy. Oh, actually, yours is even better. I'm gonna change, like whatever. It should be about what's best for the people. So like that's annoying. So yeah, I also like really am tempted to want to endorse the candidate. It's something that I like put as a goal for our political outreach. But like whatever, personally, my schedule's gotten so hectic with just like other stuff that this, like Curtis and OC have alluded to, it feels so unimportant. It feels like a NASCAR race or something compared to what is going on. And like Curtis also said, like for me, it's pretty simple. Yeah, if you're supporting a genocide, if you're committing war crimes, and you think like either way, like this could apply to multiple candidates in the field. If you think that it's part of the president's job to commit war crimes, I'm sure you can think whatever, multiple, like, then that's not my candidate. And that's who I would advocate. I would advocate for whatever candidate is on the ballot that aligns most closely. And I would try to vote that way. I also am just like very undecided, and having got a taste of the multiple things, I'm like, okay, yeah, mutual aid is good, grassroots is good. Even like well-intended people, like I think Jill Stein is well-intended. I think she just felt like she had to do it. She felt like, she was obligated, and now she's like stuck. And if you're the candidate, you have to be fully confident. You have to be all of this stuff. And so she's trying. I don't blame her, and she's just not. I think that if the Green Party really wants to like look like they're different and like like Jasmine Sherman, and like people should vote for Jasmine Sherman because they represent the Green Party values. They would be most likely to get the people excited, even if like they believe that they're going to win, so I believe they're going to win. But even if that's not a reality, we win by showing that we can come together behind one candidate. Like, just like you said, their rise in the past few months, that's amazing for just somebody. Like, just as somebody with some backing and a TikTok, like an organization. That's one thing. They are very organized. That's the thing that has won me over the most about it's like, yes, they don't have all the money or whatever, but they care about their people, they care about their volunteers. They, other things that I've seen the opposite. Every other campaign that I've worked in this season has been like every other campaign. The Sherman campaign is different. So regardless of all that, it's about like putting your values into action, and like they believe in themselves. They're putting the values that they would implement as president into their organization. They're not like being another Democratic Party, but like, oh, we're a little more this, it's like, no, we are the thing we claim to be. We may be small, but like, to be completely honest, the largest Green Party in the United States is something like 20 members, the largest, most active. So like when you put it like that, it's like, oh, wow, we really can, there isn't the thing that they have, and this is why whatever I believe the independents should just band together. The thing they have is some ballot access. Why, if you want these things, why not build a coalition of all these people and put all of that money, like instead of be fighting like with a bunch of people that do a primary with them or something, like, but so that's all. I'm sorry for talking so much. It is something that I have put a lot of time in, and it's only because even though I don't like, I feel like I don't care anymore, even though I still care. I see so many people, this is the only time they care about civic engagement. This is the only time that they vote and whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is my time to talk to these people and all these circles, especially these people that are for the first time wanting to vote third party. And I want to encourage that because there are all of these forces, maybe even the party or the person that they're supporting, that are nefarious, that want them to be discouraged, that wants them to be like, see, you'll never win if you go independent. You'll actually spoil it, which is not a real thing. Like, no, you have a right to your opinion, and if we keep voting for evil, we keep getting evil. So
I want to address this to OC and yourself, Athena. It's something I alluded to earlier, and this is not to the channel's already here. Like, this is my channel. Everyone knows that I do all the interviewing, bookings, and everything else. But I guess my question, and this is a red flag for me, because it says a lot about organization. The fact that Cornel West and Claudia de la Cruz is not responding to the people. And I've seen this on X too. People have said, I can't get in touch with Cornel West's office. I've seen people say this consistently. Is that a red flag to you all? The fact that there's not even a response? Because even RFK, his press team reached out to me personally and gave a comment. I mean, the fact that there's no response whatsoever, like, what does that say about those campaigns?
Yeah, I'll let it in because then it shows what type of leader you'll be. It shows that you'll be a leader who won't listen to the people that they are leading. And why would you if for whatever reason that sounds appealing to you, then by all means support a type of person like that. I would like a leader who actually listens to the people that they are making decisions for. And so, I think that's what it says about those campaigns. Yeah. I'll leave it.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So for both of them, yeah, it says that they don't care what you have to think. Like, it's a strategy, and you're not a part of it. And they both have made that clear in multiple ways. Like, for instance, with the De La Cruz campaign, they're only doing specific states that they're seeking ballot access, which, okay, I understand. You're literally gonna only get enough. Like, it's such a silly, unserious strategy that it's like, okay, so you don't care about the other states. You don't, like, it's just, I get how hard it is, but you should at least try. Like, you shouldn't already be like, these states are low priority because of the type of people we think are there. It's like, no, maybe if you were there, they would vote. I hate that, like, inverted thinking. And then I fear a lot of the same with the Cornel West campaign. Although they have a 50-state strategy, I know for a fact, having worked on multiple campaigns and have professionally worked on petition gathering campaigns, that having absolutely no paid canvassers only works if you have a massive movement who's already organized and dedicated and trained. And he announced, like, in September, hasn't done anything till January. And having been a part of this, I see, like, no, that's not happening. I've literally asked, because I was trying to help lead Texas, because I just want there to be somebody. I just want, especially in Texas, it's like, I want them to get ballot access. That's the only way. We don't have write-in. I can't, there's no other option. It's that or don't vote. And maybe that's, whatever the point that it's at. There's nobody to vote for. I have become that person, but that's fine. Like, that's what we're at. So yeah, I hate that, because I think it should be an open dialogue. Again, I hate to keep going back to Jasmine Sherman, but they accept appointments. They're always available to you. They have multiple ways to reach you. They read all of their policies to you. Like, they care about what you have to say. And that's what a person who's serving, because that's what you're doing as a politician, they're serving, they should seek to serve you. They should seek you what you want, and yeah, that's very disappointing. Yeah.
Yes, and again, this is not to out anyone. I'm actually going into a show in a few hours. I'm going to Tracy invited me on her show to discuss the Congressional Black Caucus, and I said we should discuss Cornel West too, because he's a big part of this. Cornel West has, I think there's different phases of Cornel West. I think you have the Democracy Matters, Race Matters, Cornel West. I have both of those books. I've read them several times. But I think there's another version of Cornel West too. He's a bigger name. I think he's tied to the mainstream media. He's tied to the deep state structure. And I think that is a more of a, he's definitely got a strategic mindset more so than I'm going to talk to the people on the ground and get their views about me and get some feedback, some useful feedback. I definitely see it as more of a, I don't know, there's definitely a calculation there. And I know there's been people that he's been on their shows and then it's like they don't invite him back on and there's all kinds of mess going on. I'm not interested in that. I just I was disappointed because I really thought that we would have a great conversation and that I would bring the best out of transparency as far as, you know, his views and stuff. It sounds more like a gospel than it does an actual presidential campaign. And I just want people to talk to me like face to face. I'm not into the preaching and all this other stuff. Like just talk to me like a person and then we can, you know, agree to disagree on certain things. But I know the people on this show will keep asking about it. And this is the final time I'm going to address the Cornel West situation. And I'm not trying to be mean or bitter, but that's it. I've tried, you guys, okay? I've tried through several people that know him, like they're in the same room with the guy. What do you want me to do? And so I'm going to leave it at that. And I think we're almost at the conclusion of this interview because we're 2 hours in, and I have to be on the other show relatively soon. But I want Athena and Osi for the last few minutes to give me anything that's on their mind, anything that we need to address or give attention to, shout outs to people, and how people can contact you in case they had a question or a comment.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'll say is, and you know, Kiko, you reminded me of it when you were talking about your list of 10 things for a presidential candidate. There's this website that I go to, and I haven't been in 2 years. I don't know if it's still around or whatever. It's called I Side With. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying they have all the candidates or maybe their questions or whatever. But like if you go, they just have like a quiz and there are a lot of questions. And I like it because it helps you to like think about, because there'll be tons of questions of just like, wow, what is my stance on that? I have no idea. You know, like that's interesting. So you kind of have to like think within yourself, like, where do I stand on this? It'll give you a couple of options, and it's just like being honest with yourself of like, oh wow, it's I think it's a good tool to sort of see where you actually are and not have someone else tell you where you are just based on whatever type of media you watch or whatever education you have. But it's like, take your own quiz and like have like a real moment with yourself of just like all of these wide variety of different, I mean, it'll be every things that you wouldn't even think about. And I think that's a useful thing for anyone watching. And it's not just president, it'll show you, and at the end of the quiz, it'll show you which candidate you most align with by percentages and like breakdowns of like, you know, they'll take either answers that they've given or like statements in the press, and they'll use those to like see where they would line up on these questions, and then it'll show you like the overlap of how closely you answered with all these different candidates. So I know it at least has like Green Party and Independent and Libertarian. It'll even have some like Constitutional Party and like some it does have like a large amount of third-party candidates. Like it has like the Communist Party and like this. Anyway, I haven't been in 2 years, but that's something. You know, thanks Kiko so much for having us on. I really appreciate it. I'm always like happy to come on, excited whenever Athena tells us that, you know, we're invited back, and so it's always great to be here. This is a great thing that you're building. And it's a really easy place to talk and like, you know, just get out some ideas and just like very comfortable setting. So I appreciate that. I don't have much to say. I know Athena would say it better than me. Check us out on peoplespartyoftexas.org. you know, we have all of our links there. We have meetings every week. All of our meetings are recorded, so you can watch them if you miss. We have every social media. Join our Discord, and you can see the day-to-day of what we're doing in Texas. So yeah, there's a link tree in the chat. Maybe we could put that in the description. And yeah, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Yeah. You said it beautifully, OC. The only things that I would add are, like, we kind of alluded to there being a need for, you know, rescheduling and decriminalization, at least in Texas. And there are those efforts going on in 6 cities in Texas. They have got enough petition signatures, got it on the ballot, voted, and approved decriminalization in 6 cities. And so the Attorney General is suing those cities, even though, like, it was like between 60 to 80% of turnout for these things. Like, they had higher turnout than presidential elections. And the, like, margin that they won by were like 90%. Like, they're all like very high. And so, like, the voters overwhelmingly approved of this. They got the signatures. They went through the entire process, but the state doesn't want to honor their constitutional right to petition, to do, you know, all of this. So meanwhile, these organizations are still trying to do it in at least like 4 other cities. So we're trying in Dallas right now. We've gotten like almost 10,000 signatures or something like that. And we've only been going like 3 weeks, and we're getting more people every day, people volunteering. So that is just one really cool thing that we're supporting and doing at every chance we get. And even though it's hilarious when we run to people that are from most other states where it's somewhat legalized, they're like, I'm from, you know, almost like, you know, I'm literally from New Mexico, Oklahoma. We already got, and it's just like, wow, we are this far behind because of that prison industrial complex. So yeah, that's the positive and, you know, thing I would want to end on. And thank you again for having us on, and for giving us such a spotlight, and in general for all of the people that you have on, and all the information that we wouldn't otherwise know. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all too, the beautiful people. I know they're going to appreciate this episode 106 with the People's Party of Texas. I'm going to include the link tree description, and also the different organizations that are affiliated with the People's Party of Texas. I think it's important to have that information too on there. So it may take me a little bit longer to get it there. I'm thinking this episode is going to be published Sunday evening, but regardless, I'm just excited about the future of the YouTube channel, and the great guests that we've had on the show, that we continue to book on the show, and that we will have in the future. Just so much information. You don't know who you're going to have on the show. I will give an announcement that episode 107 will be Jay Clark, who's become a friend of mine. Jay Clark is actually, he lives in Chicago right now, but he really changed my life in the sense that it was the first time I got invited onto a podcast myself, like 4 years ago. His cousin and I were actually colleagues at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. They realized that they were cousins later down the road. And I think I'm actually in touch with both of them more than they are with each other, which is funny, even though they're in the same family. But shout out to Bruce Jackson and Jay Clark, located in Chicago, Illinois right now. We're going to talk about some very scary, ugly things going on in the hip hop world, with the P. Diddy, the sexual allegations, the child trafficking, the Hollywood industry in general, the music industry. We're going to discuss Kanye West too, a revisiting conversation with the Adidas controversy, and the anti-Semitism in air quotations. I'll put it at that. That word has been thrown out so much lately. Anti-Semitic this, anti-Semitic that, but apparently it only applies to one group of Semitic people. But anyway, I've said enough of it. We've had episodes about this, and it's funny when people give you the accusation, you know, oh my gosh, you're anti-Semitic, this and that. So I'm sure we're going to discuss that. But beautiful people, we just have so much coming on down the road. You all know that Finkelstein is coming back on, Jill Stein, and there'll be a lot more people run for public office. Christina Amira Khalil will be on the show. She's running for the Senate out of the state of New Jersey. I'm trying to get people within the local offices to come onto the show. Very hard to find people outside of the Red Blue Alliance in the state of Tennessee and some of the neighboring states. But I'm looking my best to try to get people. If you all know people run for public office that aren't affiliated with the two parties, give them a chance to maybe come onto the show, send those names over, and I will reach out to those people. But beautiful people, again, wonderful episode 106. Can't wait for it to publish. Enjoy the rest of your days, and we will talk soon. Cheers, everybody. OC and Athena.
Cheers. Bye.